Warning, the podcast that you're listening to right now is being recorded from inside of a notoriously haunted building, and you're about to hear real accounts of hauntings from the people who have experienced them. If you're frightened easily, I recommend turning off this broadcast now. But if you're still with us and you hear anything on this recording, any sort of EVP or voice, please send it to paranormalfilespodcast@gmail.com because we are looking for any EVPs since we are right now live inside of a haunted building. Anyways, it's time to get spooky, so let's do this. Welcome to the Paranormal Files official podcast, everybody. My name's Colin Brown, host of the Paranormal Files on YouTube. We do obviously God, I can't speak tonight. It's freaking freezing cold. We do a video series on YouTube where we travel to some of the most haunted places on the planet and investigate them overnight. Tonight, we are joined by Patrick, who has been associated with this haunted theater that we're in for a number of years, and it's his passion in life. It's your favorite place, obviously. Yes. So we're just going to dive right in. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody online who are listening what you do.
My name is Patrick Colin, and I am with Friends of the Historic Variety Theater, the current owners of the theater and the building. I've been a resident in this neighborhood for 23 years. Grew up not too far from here in Lakewood, Ohio, of those of you who know Cleveland. Got involved with this building in 2005, and I've had keys to the building since 2009. It seems like yesterday we just got keys, but it's 10 years later, 11 years later. There are a lot of things that happen here. You have your requisite creaks and groans and door slamming and things like that, lights going off, lights flickering for no apparent reason. But my experience, the things that kind of hit me a little bit harder are things like when physical things get moved.
Okay, Patrick, I'm going to cut you off real quick. Before we start telling the ghost stories, I need you to explain the history of the building for me.
I can do that. All right.
From creation to present day.
Building was built in 1927, by three local businessmen, Abe Kramer, Meyer Fine, and Sam Stecker, who created the Variety Amusement Company. The building was then sold to Warner Brothers in early 1929 before the crash. And it was a Warner Brothers house, meaning it featured Warner Brothers movies. From 1929 to 1954. 1954, the Supreme Court ruled that the movie studios could either do production or distribution. They opted to do production, so they sold their physical assets, although they found a way to make money anyway, because they always do. But it was then sold to some local real estate investors. In 1954, it was a first-run house, vaudeville being live entertainment, up in through the 1930s. By about 1938, vaudeville had definitely kind of gone away, if you will. And so they were featuring the newest invention, which, in 1929 was the talkies. And they didn't think talkies were going to be a big deal. But once they were, then they had to come back into spaces like this one, which I don't think originally had very much fabric material, if you will. But they realized with sound movies, they had to have sound dampeners. So they came in and put in large sections of cloth to cover the walls to kind of give it a warmer sound. And like I said, it was a first-run movie house up through the 60s, into the 1970s. Being in an urban area, this building saw a lot of changes, especially in the 60s and 70s. The advent of television, home air conditioning, then you get into the 70s and VCRs. Movies took movie theaters took huge hits. And so they were always trying to come up with the latest, newest thing. So there were a lot of giveaway nights. There were a lot of things of that nature to keep things going. And by the 1970s, local family, the Coase family, Mr. Coase had never owned or operated a movie theater. And he came in, saw that it had both projectors, was able to get the film prints. And so he had,
Sorry about that.
that's an awfully big thing in front of me. Okay. Anyhow, he had gone ahead and gotten the film prints and actually had a what they would call a budget movie house for the better part of the decade. And after his passing, his wife and sons entered into a written agreement with Belkin Productions, which is now Live Nation Clear Channel. And they brought in the bands of the day, if you will. Early in U2's career, Stevie Ray Vaughan played here. Motorhead, which famously played so loud at 130 decibels, recorded outside of the building that they cracked the plaster in the ceiling, and the stage manager was trying to cut the show off, and they wouldn't do it, so they pulled the plug and pissed off the band. And
That's crazy.
but well, when you're playing at that level, I mean, that's some pretty serious decibels. After that, that's what was the impetus. It was not that show, but it was the impetus to get the neighborhood to get together and basically get a petition together to get the building shut down for live music, which you really can't blame them because our closest neighbors are about 15 feet behind us, behind that wall. And it's really not a good I mean, it's a great venue for music because acoustically the venue is really good, but loud amplified music is just not in the future of this place. It's part of our history, which is the variety, so it kind of fits. After that, once the venue got shut down for live music in 1986, then it was a charter school for a minute because that seemed to be like the de jour moment in this part of the country for a couple of years. After it was charter school, it was the Cleveland Wrestleplex, and they actually did early simulcast live wrestling here. Because by that time, by that time they had taken most of the seats out of the main floor, so it kind of lent itself to that. I also meant to mention to you guys earlier that for about 5, maybe 6 years, they had a haunted theater here every Halloween, which was extremely successful. I think they charged something like $250, and you could kind of wander into the auditorium, and they would have live actors while they were playing scary movies on the screen. They would have you kind of wander through, and scare the bejesus out of you. Maybe somebody pooped their pants. I don't know. It's the internet. Can you say shit? Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
All right. Well, you'd shit your pants. So, but that being said, the building now has been vacant for just about 30 years.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah, it's because by 1991, it was pretty much done, toast, if you will. The biggest problem the building's had all along is the lack of parking, which theaters of this nature didn't need parking when they were built because people didn't have cars, or very few people had cars. And they took either the streetcar or they walked to the theater. This neighborhood actually had 4 theaters up and down Lorraine over to West 105th, and like a lot of neighborhoods in a lot of cities. And theaters were, you'd build a theater, and I'd come in and say, well, you know what? I'll build one down the street, and I'll have 500 seats instead of your 300 seats, And then it was all about seat count. And I mean, this place was massive. It is massive. It's 21,000 square feet, and it's had 1,900 seats originally when it opened. So, I mean, that's, there's no way even in my wildest dreams, there's no way that, we could just have a 1,900 seat restored movie house. That's what I'd love to see happen because I'm a purist, but, economics of things, you got to be real. And, we'd be hard pressed to get 1,000 people in for a movie, let alone, 15 or 1,600. So, but the idea is to have small theater space with a couple hundred seats with a large screen upstairs, and then either a destination restaurant or some sort of catering facility on the main floor. We could still utilize the stage, the orchestra pit, the dressing rooms, and have the theater space actually brought back to what it was in 1927. So pretty exciting. As I've said, coming in and out of this building for thousands of times now, things happen. People come in and say, "Oh my God, what was that?" And I go, "Oh, that's just so and so." They're just letting you know that they're here. So the big thing is they want to be acknowledged, and so when I come in, I acknowledge them. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. When I leave tonight, I will tell them thank you for letting us come in and not dropping anything on our heads, and generally not trying to be too spooky. Slamming doors to me is like, okay, I get it. You're pissed off. What now? So they're a rambunctious bunch, but I guess mischievous is probably the best term that fits the ghosts here. They're not so much malevolent, which makes me feel a little better because especially when I'm in here by myself, even after 10 years, it could still have the shit scared out of me. So, yeah. Especially like tonight we had earlier, we didn't catch it, but it was like, what was that? Kerplunk, kerplunk, and then all of a sudden, a big raccoon waddled out through here. So, like, okay, well, he's just coming through. Maybe he's getting a snack.
So, by the way, you can look at me.
I don't want to look at you.
Oh man. Am I really that scary?
It's scary, yeah. No,
I'm the scariest part of this whole theater right now.
No, you're not. See, there's somebody over there.
Probably the raccoon.
Yeah, there's probably the raccoon. He's coming back to see if we have any snacks.
Which, unfortunately, we do.
Oh, so. See? You better watch because they
diabetic snacks. The worst thing for a raccoon to steal.
Yeah, well, that's what they like to do. They've got those little hands.
Mm-hmm.
So,
why don't you start off by telling me your first experience here in the theater? Like, when did you first start to think that this place was haunted?
Actually, back when I came in 2005, I walked in the front door of the building into the lobby. And I don't know if any of you out there have ever had this experience, but it's really unsettling.
What?
For lack of a better term.
Where? From what?
It's the ghosts.
Is it still there?
No, it's gone.
No.
It's like
Are you seeing it?
I'm not seeing
no,
it.
but it was like you'll see it. It was like a hot dog, like an odd thing of like a little curved hot dog.
You have a hot dog in your face.
From your chin
Oh
under your
my
eye.
God.
I think Dad's maybe having a little bit of. Okay.
But
yeah, you say, okay,
so
that's okay, Dad.
So you weren't seeing that though?
No, I didn't see that.
Didn't see a shadow?
Nope.
I just want to say to people online who are listening, you can go onto YouTube and watch the video version of this podcast. Hi to everybody who's watching online on YouTube. And you can see that shadow for yourself because I don't know what would be causing that.
Only the shadow knows.
The hot dog's shadow.
Hot dog shadow.
Because last night, actually, before we get back into your story, I just want to point this out. We had, we were in Cleveland once again at the Midwest Railroad Preservation Society.
Love that place. Yeah, it's a
Railway.
Yep.
Midwest Railway Preservation Society. I can't talk. And during the podcast when we were recording it, we had like these loud bangs just to our left. And we all stopped, like, okay, that was creepy. And then halfway through the podcast, one of these tripods actually got pulled, like yanked backwards, and it was recording, and we got it on camera, and we're just staring, looking at it like, did that really just happen? Mm-hmm. So that's why I give people the warning at the beginning, because a lot of podcasts talk about hauntings and spirits and stuff, but they don't actually go live and record from a haunted place, right, in a studio or something. And in this case, we're actually here in the center. Well, not the dead center, but we're in the building. So, speaking of ghosts and hauntings, I'm gonna let you continue your story about the first time you thought.
When I walked in 2005, the best way I can describe it is if you had 5 or 6 people around you, and they all started talking at once. And they were saying things like, where have you been? What took you so long? You're finally here. And I just, it is the most disconcerting thing, but I just finally was like, stop talking to me. Well, of course, I'm here, and it's a neighborhood open house. My neighbors are here. And they are like stepping back, going, okay, well, something set him off. And I was like, no, I'm hearing voices in my head. I hope you don't think I'm crazy, but I'm hearing them. And it's very much in line with any of you out there who are familiar with Stephen King's work. I liken it to not as malevolent as The Shining, but very much in like that I've been here before. I know I've been here before. And that was very unsettling. Also very unsettling the first time that I was in here for a period of time late at night, because I come in at 2 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't care. If I can't sleep, I come over here. Not usually when it's this cold, but when it's a little warmer, I'm like, oh, let's just go over and hang out with the lady. So I was setting up when we got keys. Our ghost light, if you will, was this most pathetic little, like 3-armed gooseneck type thing, and only one of the goosenecks worked. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just rewire this. And I thought, throw it out. Go buy a light. So I went to Home Depot and bought some work lights, and that's our ghost light. Well, when you buy these things, you have to put the cases. You got to get the bulbs. You put the bulbs in. You got to put the cases on. You got to screw them together. Didn't have the right screwdriver. So I come back, and I thought, oh, I'll just do that Tuesday night. Come back, and I'm up there, and, you've got 5 lights. So I did 1, I did 2. Get to the 3rd one, and I hear very clearly behind me, up here at the top of the auditorium, I hear footsteps. And I look back, and the way the light was on at that particular time, there was a light ahead shining into the back of the auditorium. So if you're familiar with the way that works, okay, if you throw a shadow, it looks really big. I'm looking at what looked to be like a 6'5" man in a top hat at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday.
Wow.
And I'm thinking somebody got in here, because at the time the door off the alley was dead bolted from the outside. So you'd open the door. There was no way to lock it from the inside. So you just kind of barricaded yourself in. I'm thinking, somebody got in and they're messing with me. And as I start to walk up the floor, the person starts walking faster this way, in this direction, to come out of the auditorium. And I'm like, stop. I'm like, get up. And I get up here, and I come around the corner, and of course, I still see him, and we're going behind me here, where the manager's office, where I was coming in from, and I get over there, and the way I barricaded everything was as it was. And there was no person in the top hat. And I was thinking, well, the first time that I had a group in here, I didn't call the police department. And about an hour in, I get, notice, there's about 15 people here. I get notice that we need you down here right now. And I come down the steps behind where your dad's standing there, and there's like 22 of Cleveland's finest coming through the manager's office. And I was like, what the hell? It's like 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, and who's guarding the ward? And they're like, it's a slow night. We've gotten 3 calls that the variety's been broken into, and we came to movies here. And I was like, wow, that really hit me, because then it was like, they took partial ownership, which was really cool. And we've really worked that angle because it's a community asset. And so as such, people do watch, and I said, people do observe. I don't have to ask them to do that. This is great. And when I see people, I'm like, I really, if you have a problem, you call me, because, we want to work together and keep the place safe. And I had 3 different police officers come to me, tell me the same story when they were kids. Okay, and 2 of these guys were built like, excuse the expression, but a brick shit house. Like, and they're like, telling me, you're not going to believe this, and it's going to sound crazy, but, our parents were like, here's 50 cents, go up and watch the movies. So they come up and they go to sit down. And they got kind of creeped out. And one of the guys was like, I don't even believe I could tell you this, but he said, 2 rows behind us was a guy sitting in a top hat and, tux. And they looked at each other and said, didn't really want to sit here. So they decided they would move up like 10 rows. And when they did, sat down, the guy was sitting right behind them. Like right behind them. Freaked them out. They ran out of here. They didn't ask for their money back. They went home and they were like, we'll never talk of this again. And they all came and told me like the same story, but separately. And by the second one, I was like, okay, The third one, though, I was like, there's just there's no way that this. And I thought, okay, well, they had told me that. And, like right around that time, like, here's the guy in the top hat. And I see, and I see him once in a while. But that was a little freaky because he looked like he was probably, with the shadow, he looked like he was 7 foot tall. But I knew he had to be over 6 foot because just the way I'm looking at it is a little disconcerting. Like if you look down a road and in the middle of the road, there's just a person standing there at 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the road. I don't know about you, but that would kind of freak me out if I was in a car by myself. But, that's the kind of stuff that, okay, I get it, and then it did take, for instance, the lady in white. There's a story of a woman in white, and she's supposed to be right here by the old water fountain.
Right here?
Right here, right over here by the ladies' lounge. I've never seen her there, ever.
But people have seen.
But people have seen her there. Now, she manifested when we did a Halloween visit, or the week before Halloween, and had a bus tour come in, and they come for like 45 minutes, and then they go to another place. And we decided that I had a couple people helping me out because there was a bus of like 45 people, and so we'd like to have a couple people to just kind of crowd control. And said, oh, can we do a lights out? And I said, well, of course, because you volunteered your time. I don't mind, And so we sat up in the balcony in the dark, and I see this, what looks like, because they had glow sticks, because it was right before Halloween. And I thought, oh, somebody left a glow stick down in the one doorway, because I see this glow stick. And I'm sitting there, and I'm not saying anything as I'm watching this glow stick, like, come up and start going, like, in the middle of the auditorium. And I didn't say anything at all. I was like, okay, I'm just going to pretend I'm not seeing that. And Ashley, one of the girls that came to help, and I had just met her that night. Her and her boyfriend helped us out. And she's sitting behind me, and she said, what the hell is that? And I said, what do you see? And she goes, it looks like a floating glow stick. And I go, okay, I'm not the only one seeing it. So as it goes up in the middle of the auditorium, if you've ever taken a photo with somebody holding a candle, and it's just that light, there's no other light in the room, and they pass around the front, you can see the facial features. That's exactly what I saw. And I saw this woman who looked like she was maybe 30, 25, 30, very pretty. And the dress was this high-necked, Victorian-type dress, and kind of a white off-white. And I realized as the candle's going by, I'm like, oh my God, you're the woman in white. I said, I've been waiting for you. I said, I've waited 8 years for you to manifest yourself. And now you finally show up, on a Saturday night. And she curtsied. She took the candle, what looked like a candle, but it wasn't. It looked like a glow stick kind of thing. She moved it and curtsied. Now, the other freaky thing is this 21-year-old girl who's sitting behind me said, oh my God, she fucking curtsied. Turned around, I said, how do you even know what that term is? She goes, I don't even know why I said that. Okay. We hadn't been drinking or anything else, so I'm like, I don't get it, but you know what? These are things you just say, okay, it happened, and I'm just going to leave that right here, and we're going to move along. And as I went to leave, because we at one point had to leave, I'd stay here all night if we had heat, but we don't, so I'm not. Went to leave and turned the lights back on. As I walked back down the auditorium to turn the lights by the stage, the woman in white was in the doorway. And she's looking right at me. And I said, well, we're going to have to leave, but thank you so much for showing yourself. And I believe her name is Claire. And I believe she also performed here. We figured that out. I just remember looking at her, and she's looking back at me, and I'll date myself, but there was a time when you would take photos and you'd get red eye. So, you take a family photo and there's grandma, and, she's got these evil red eyes, and no, it's just a reflection. So that's what it felt like to me when I was looking at her. It wasn't a feeling of, oh, she's got beady red eyes, because I think some people embellish a little thing. But she did have red eyes, but it just felt like you were taking a picture of her, so I didn't feel threatened at all. And then as I said goodnight, she curtsied again.
Wow.
And then I looked back over there when I went to leave, and she was gone.
What?
It's out.
What do you mean?
Well, there's usually, he's been all the time.
Stand by. Please stand by. Yeah.
That was weird.
Okay.
Well, this battery's gone from 100 to 15. Okay. Well, I'm sorry to interrupt your story.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go grab a new battery real quick.
Grab a battery.
Gonna cue people in online. And the moment that that happened, that he pointed out that the battery was about to die and the camera stopped recording. Are you hearing it? Yeah, we heard like a rolling, crunching, kind of scratching sound from the stairwell right behind us. So we're going to pause real quick, grab a new battery. That's bizarre, but okay. Okay, well, to everybody online, just to explain what happened just now. Jeff, my dad, looked at the camera that is shooting Patrick over here, and it was about to die. And I went back to our area where we're keeping the backpack with all the batteries, and I grabbed the other battery that I just charged all night. And I was watching it charge with my eyes, and it was full, and that battery was completely dead. And all three of our batteries are already dead, which is what's crazy for this one camera, the A7S. And we are going to roll on this one until it dies. I'm going to have you just keep watching that, and then we're charging one of the other ones. But Patrick, do you remember what you were talking about before we...
Oh, jeez. So many stories. Oh, yeah, the woman in white.
Yep, the woman in white.
Okay, all right. So the candle, or should I say glow stick, because really that's what I thought it was. And true story, I went over I thought, okay, in the other doorway, she's standing in one. In the other doorway, the glow stick must, there's got to be a glow stick there. I walk over there, there's no glow stick. There's no glow stick anywhere. I was like, okay, so we saw what looked like a glow stick. It was kind of like a candlelight, and showed off, and again, able to try and ascertain what her connection was to the building. And I believe her name is Claire, and I don't know why, but I knew, I just had the feeling that her name started with a C. And once I figured out she was a performer here, and that this again was a happy place for her, so that's why she was here. But I said, why did you take so? I mean, I was crying when I left here. I said, why did you take so long to manifest yourself? I've been in and out all these years, and you never showed yourself. You don't love me. Okay, that was a little weird, but nonetheless, the next week we came back. We had another bus group come through, and so I thought, let's try this again. And don't you know that sitting up in that balcony with no lights on, it took about 20 minutes. But there was that, what looked like a glow stick, and it started floating up into the auditorium. And I said, well, if you understand my voice, I said, can you move to your left? Glow stick moves. And then I start seeing the face, and there she was, so, that actually was it was just a really cool. How do you explain that?
You don't.
I mean, I'm waiting for the people sitting behind me to say something, and they're saying exactly what I'm seeing. I mean, exactly, too. It's not like, oh, it looks like that. No, it didn't look like fog. It looked like a glow stick. And, anybody who's been at a Halloween party knows what a glow stick is, or a rave, for that matter. That's okay. I'm dating myself. Isn't that what the kids call it now?
Yeah.
But there's so many things that when you come in here, I've come in, I've walked in, and I walk through that door all the time. Unlock the door, and hello, ladies and gentlemen, and all of a sudden it'll sound like somebody dropped a, unhinged door on the floor, or up by the stage you'll hear things, and I think some of that at the stage anyway, I think is the gentleman. There was a gentleman who was up in the rigging, what we call the doghouse, the top of the stage, and he when you're up there, I've been up there, and my brother actually spotted me going up there a couple of years ago, because I said, I'm climbing up that back ladder. Yeah, that was really stupid, Patrick. But anyhow, I didn't do it by myself. I waited till I had somebody to spot me in case I fell to the, floor and broke my back or something. So I'm climbing up the steps, and my brother's standing there holding the cell phone going, I dialed 911. And I said, well, you might want to dial the other one just in case. He goes, well, don't fall on me. And I'm like, well, I have no intentions, but who knows when I get up here. And I get up to the top, because I went up there because we had a couple of years ago, we had a pigeon infiltration, because we had something blow open up there. And I thought, oh, I'll take some nails, a hammer. It won't take anything. Yeah, okay, you get up there, and it's like another 20 feet up to where you need to be, where the hole is. There's no ladder. There's nothing to hold on to. And the grates are, the slats, I should say, are like wide enough that if you moved your foot the wrong way, your foot and leg would go all the way. You would fall onto and I thought, this is beyond my pay grade. I'm going back downstairs. Meanwhile, I got pigeons up there going, nah, 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 nah. Like you flying rats. I'll get you. So, anyhow, and I climbed back down the steps, and, all was right with the world. But up there, I felt like, this is why. This is extremely dangerous up here. There's nothing. I mean, there's a brick wall over there, and you got to walk like a, almost like a trapeze artist kind of thing. And then if you're below that, there's nothing to stop you. I mean, you're going to go, if you slip, you're going to go right to which is what happened to this gentleman. And I believe that was in the mid-30s. And again, that's not something you can verify with, news reporting, because they're not going to report that, because you want to kill a business. Oh, hey, somebody died on the stage. Come see our movie. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
And speaking of which, it just comes to mind, being that it's cold. But I know there's a gentleman that I've known for a number of years here in the neighborhood who now works with me part-time. And we talk about, he's one of these people that if you look at an old picture and there's 3 cars in it, he can identify all 3 cars. That's a Packard. It's amazing. He grew up, his dad worked for Ford. He has this passion for old cars. So we're talking about the variety, and he was, and I had heard stories of, but there were 2 different managers here who committed suicide.
At the Variety?
At the Variety, in that office behind us. One in 1941. The manager apparently had been accused of embezzling of some sort, and got caught with his hand in the cookie jar and decided to go in the manager's office and lock the door and pull a gun and shoot himself.
Right
over there.
I did not know that.
I did not know.
Right
I
now.
did not know
Wow.
that until. Okay, well, and there's also another one, I believe in the early 30s, which would have been a couple years after the building opened. Same thing, but not from an embezzlement. He just, I think, had other issues that precluded that. And again, I don't know because there's no story, there's no written history of it. But people do things, and again, up in the balcony, a lover's quarrel between 2 men fighting over a woman, and they're all up in the balcony, and things happen, and fists are thrown, and next thing you know, one of the guys is dead on the main floor. And again, that's not something that you're going to find in a history of Cleveland, and that's true of a lot. I mean, that's true of probably most theaters. But that adds to that whole, the whole ghost thing, because who knows? I mean, I've always been, when I've been in the office now, that's where the brains for the marquee are. And it's not a very big unit. I mean, it's just, all that the electronics are pretty small, including the clock to set the lights to go on and off. So you have to stand real close. Talk about nearsighted. But anyhow, every time I've been in there, I feel like there is somebody, like you would be standing behind me, like you were watching what I was doing. I mean, every single time. And I know that, of course, if you spend half your life counting other people's money, which is what we do in tickets, and usually you don't have a big space, and that way, there's probably, there was a safe back there, and there was, we got to get this done. We got to get the money to the bank. So I could totally see that it's probably if not one of those guys, then one of the other managers. They had several managers over the years. So
I want to ask you a question quick about just paranormal theory. A lot of times people think theaters are some of the most haunted places.
Right.
And in my opinion, I like to think that that's because, you have so many people coming in and out constantly, kind of experiencing things together, putting out this energy, happy, sad. You got people working here. And, I mean, then you have the deaths that happen in theaters, and obviously that adds to the equation. But why do you think that the Variety is so haunted?
I think that there is... I think that she is, we refer to her as the Lady on Lorraine for a reason. And one of those is that she is still very elegant. She's very jaded and very dusty. But she's a very elegant lady. And I feel like this area has so much going for it, and there's so much history here. just in this building and just in, when you say variety theater, and I can say, well, they showed vaudeville and they had hard rock here. So, the dichotomy is not lost. But I think also so many people have been here through so many things, as you said, movies and happy and sad. And I think that some places are just more prone to be haunted, if you will. And again, I think theaters have that impact because that's a piece of Americana that will never be repeated. The theaters of today are just boxes, they're very generic.
Yep.
Not saying that there are nice elements. They have a good sound system or a good visual, but
they're chains.
They're just chains, and these places were a place of escape. And when this was built right before the Great Depression. The fact that it lived through the Great Depression is nothing but, if not amazing. And the fact that there were 4 theaters within 10 blocks of this place, and again, that's not only here, but that's across the country. There were thousands and thousands and thousands of theaters like this. And now there are a couple hundred that may survive. And I've often said, when people come in for tours or for photography, I'll say, look, if you haven't been to the Lorraine Palace, shameless plug, but if you haven't been to the Lorraine Palace in Lorraine, Ohio, you need to find an event and you need to go there, because if we don't support these places, we will not survive. And so if you put all this effort into it, I don't want to wax, poetic, but if people will say, why isn't it done yet? Well, I don't have $15 million and I can't just snap my fingers. Mm-mm. However, it is moving in the right direction, and it will get done, and it will happen. It's just a matter of when. And so, patience is one of those things that you just got to have in these efforts. But I think when it comes down to it, there's so much that's happened here in this neighborhood that this particular place has seen so many changes that I kind of feel like they, there's a couple different theories about if you're a ghost, if you're, a spirit, if you're, some people subscribe to that, they might be stuck or not pushed through. I don't necessarily subscribe to that, because I feel like this place in particular is a place where you can come and visit and stay or not stay, or maybe stay for a little while and then maybe not come back for a couple of years. I don't know how that works. I don't know if it's, a visa that you get when you die and you're like, okay, God, I want to go here. And maybe it is, and maybe that would be kind of cool. And I'd like to think that because I don't come in here and be like, okay, who's here? They come to me, and they've always come to me. And, I had experiences growing up when I lived in Lakewood. The house that I lived in, the person there were several families that it was sold and resold like over a very short period of time. Like somebody might have lived there 2 years, 4 years, so on. And so back when I was about 14, 15, I had an experience, and it's going to sound really weird, but I'll say it anyway. Because maybe one of you out there has had this experience. Follow me, picture it. So I'm sitting on the commode. Okay? I'm home alone. The door is closed. The door is to my left. And I hear what sound, and it was a 4-bedroom house. It's on Lewis Drive in Lakewood. It's a beautiful house. I think it was built in like 1932. And I heard what the steps, the hallway and everything was carpeted. But I heard what sounded like steps coming from one end of the hallway to the other. And again, it wasn't a very large hallway. It just had entrances to the bedrooms. And so my parents came home, and I said, Mom, I said, it sounds going to sound really weird, but I felt like there was somebody in the house when you guys were gone. She goes, oh, no. And I said, no, I mean like somebody, something, like ghost. And so she didn't believe me, so I said, you need to come with me. Well, of course, my mom was a smoker, so she grabs the cigarette and comes with me. I said, okay, what I want you to do, we'll put the lid down. I said, I want you to sit on the commode, okay? And I'm going to go out here, shut the door, and I want you to say what kind of sound you hear when I walk across the carpet. So she acknowledged. She says, yeah, it sounds like footsteps. Still sounds, creaking. And so I did it. And I sat and I said, would you do this for me? So she would, and I said, that is what I heard. That is what I heard. I heard somebody walk. So, curious, I asked the neighbor next door, a wonderful lady, Eileen Kunze, who was a young widow, and her mother and stepfather came. That's the first time I learned about like an in-law suite, because they came to live with her after her husband died very prematurely. And wonderful, wonderful people. And I said, so they lived there. They had been there like 40 years. And so I said, do you have
What was that?
any recollection? Do you have any recollection of, did anybody die in this house? And she said, no, but there was a gentleman who was very sick and in and out of the hospital. And one of his last trips to Lakewood Hospital, he passed away. And I said, did he have anybody, was there a family member? Oh, no, he had a caretaker. Really? I said, so like the caretaker would check, like, let's say you were not feeling well and you were staying with your dad and
Fuck.
okay, well, so I said, well, okay, is there a so there was a caretaker. So I figured it out. So this person who didn't die in the house, again, same thing here. If somebody worked here, died when they went home, but the visit was from the caretaker. That's what I was hearing. Was the caretaker checking, like you would say you were you weren't feeling well and you were staying with your dad, and he's like, hey, are you okay? Do you need anything? I'm here. Again, that was my first experience.
Wow.
And so that's like 1979. And so then you fast forward and you come here when I feel like, okay, first time I came in with keys, went through the basement, I knew where everything was. I didn't even need a flashlight. It was dark down there. I knew where the gas room was, where all the gas meters are. I knew where the two boilers used to be, because they're not there anymore. It was like I was seeing it as a DVD, but as a little kid, like maybe I was somebody's sibling and they couldn't get a babysitter, and here I had to come and go down with George in the basement. He's kind of curmudgeon, and because I keep trying to see in the dream that I've had, I keep trying to see where, if you watch an old movie, you see a calendar up on the wall, or if it's like a newsroom, you'll see. I gotta find a calendar because I know it was after 1945 because the war had ended, but it wasn't 1950. So maybe 47, 48. So it's kind of weird, but it's okay. If anything, it makes me feel more comfortable here because, okay, I've been here before. And I see, you mentioned about the, Titanic when they come through and they show what it looked like, the grandeur of that. I have seen that. I've walked in here and I've seen what it looked like before, and I've seen what it will look like in the future. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's extremely comforting because I'm like, if we gonna get done with this yet? So,
well, this has been quite an interesting discussion so far.
well, thank you.
Thank you for telling your stories.
Thanks guys for coming. I really,
Of course.
was very excited that you were gonna be coming to our little town.
Well, it's been a pleasure. And I got to tell people also that while we've been shooting this podcast, this camera has lost all of its battery. The camera to my right, the camera that has been focused on me just died after. I mean, we've been doing this podcast the last 2 nights. None of our cameras have died any of those nights, and we've done the exact same thing. But both of these cameras are about to die. That camera right there that's getting the wide shot is also about to die. You can see the light is flashing. It's probably going to die any second now. So I just want to thank everybody who has listened to this podcast. Thank you for giving us your time and your ear and listening to these stories from Patrick. And if you want to, you can see the video version on our YouTube channel if you're just listening. And after this, we're going to be investigating the Variety Theater for Paranormal Activity. We're going to take these cameras down and investigate right away. And if you want to watch that investigation right when we post this podcast, that episode is also going to be posted. So you can go watch that on the Paranormal Files official channel on YouTube for free. And yeah, anything left to say before we head out?
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Well, everybody have my grammar. God, it's like I can't even talk in this theater. It's so weird. I mean, it's cold, yeah, but I mean, like, I can't formulate words. It was cold last night too, but it's like even when I was interviewing you, I couldn't talk. It's like it's so strange. But
well,
yeah.
I have to say, I think the feeling I get is that they're intrigued by this whole setup because it's not something that this is the first time we've ever done this like this. I mean, we've had live feeds, on the internet for a ghost investigation, but that's during the investigation. That's not doing an interview like this, or for the podcast. So I think that there were probably 4 or 5. I felt like there were like 3 people, almost like you would stand and watch. Just like if you're observing something, like say you're somebody's, they're shooting a movie in town, and so people are, that's what I feel like. It's like they're, and it was funny because behind you, I felt like there's, and I felt this before, but there's always somebody who's kind of like almost leaning around and looking like, what are you doing? That was my chair. So, those are things that, and again, I don't claim to explain them, but over the years, I've done my research, and like I said, there are different theories about different things, and I think that, I don't want to say this is like a portal, but I think this is a place that that spirits can come and go as they please, and maybe that's an option out there. I don't know. I'd like to think that is, because if we have that option, I mean, it's going to be great. You can go places you've never been. If you don't get to be 85, 90 years old and you're not able to go someplace, maybe you can go in, in the next life. So,
real quick, what?
Real quickly, just what Patrick said. Real quick on feeling like someone's watching you.
Yeah.
That's what I told you, right? Patrick was in the other room, and I had set everything up. The K2 meter was going off, and I said, I kind of feel like there's people right here kind of saying, hey,
Here.
Do you like
Say that in just so people can hear you.
Well, in front of the camera?
Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, here.
Sorry. So, what I was just saying is with Patrick, when he said he felt it was like people were here watching. When Patrick was in the other room, I told Colin when I was setting this up and got done, I kind of felt like they were watching me set it up, and they were like really happy with what they were seeing, right? Like they'd never seen this.
Yep.
And it's exactly what you said, and that's exactly what I told you. And that K2 meter was going off like crazy right there, and I felt like there were like 2, 3, 4 people like, wow, just watching me set this thing up, and we're excited that we were doing this. So just to confirm what Patrick was kind of feeling.
Well, it's time to investigate, and it's time to get spooky. So thank you guys for listening/watching. Have a very spooky rest of your day and night, and We'll see you guys next time.
Perfect.
Great.
Don't forget to head to the Paranormal Files official channel on YouTube to see what spooky things transpired when we turned the microphones off.